up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Scribbles.
Live from the apocalypse. This is not a dream. It's not a nightmare. This is State of the Game. I don't know why I was trying to be cool. This is Dano, your host. I am not tall. I am not fast. I am a thinker, but I'm not smart, per se. I hope that makes sense. My co-host is excited, is gratified, just got his new shirt in. It says, from the windows to Tim Walls, and on the back, till the sweat drips down my balls. I don't know why balls is in red.
See, you were doing so well, and then
yeah. I'm not gonna pick at it, you know. Thank you, Kay, for being here. I appreciate you.
But I'm sure the walls kept in that. I mean, that's actually pretty solid. They'll reach out to you on that.
I did that.
You should you gotta copyright that quickly. That's a solid one. Except for the second part. The first part is
no, I think the second part makes it.
We're gonna set up the merch.
I agree. Has to have the red though.
We're very happy to be here. We've got two incredible guests. One returning guest. This is I guess if he was a Batman character, he'd be Tim Drake. This is No God. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And
once again,
yeah, Koseph, Kosey. If you were a Batman character, decided you'd be Zatanna.
You know what? Let me Google that real quick because I feel like I feel complimented off the name alone.
Zatanna is like a badass magician.
Oh, shit!
Yeah,
badass. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Taught him how to escape shit. You know, it's good. This is a good one.
That you went off there. I'm flattered.
Now this kind of originates with No God in the RMPB Discord saying that he put his dad onto Voodoo by D'Angelo. And I was like, oh man, I could do hours on Voodoo. And then glorious Ratman Gavin said, why don't you? Which is a fair point. We do
Gavin's
this every fucking week. So instead of being ignored by some rapper's manager, let's just talk about Voodoo.
Yeah.
Which is a very important album, and going over it is just every inch as important as I fucking remembered it. I was trying to think about a reference point. I think maybe how kids felt hearing To Pimp a Butterfly was how we felt hearing Voodoo when it came out. And it was that seismic. So I just wanted it to clear the way and talk about it. Do you have, let's clear it for feelings and emotions first. Kay, feelings and emotions associated with Voodoo for you. What do you think about?
So I got that was the first CD I purchased, because I remember, so I got into Brown Sugar maybe 2003. I purchased Brown Sugar. And then, so I went to college 2005, and my mother sent a care package, like my first college care package, and that CD was in it. So that CD was with me my freshman year. So it's very nostalgic for me. Like every time I hear that CD, brings me back to my first semester in school. So.
And follow-up question, Kay. Only you can answer this.
Yeah.
When D'Angelo releases Brown Sugar, is he black famous at that point, or was he always famous?
I mean, when did Brown Sugar came out? What, in 90? Not 96, right? 96, 97?
95.
Let me hit the Google.
95, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't famous. Like he wasn't famous till Voodoo, until Untitled, for better or worse for him.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that's true. I think if you look at, and this is Black Famous is an incredible space because you can be like Brian McKnight and you got gold records. And then I'm like, white people are like, what's a Brian McKnight?
Mhm.
It was just a world that lived in a totally different place. So I think Brown Sugar kind of lives there.
Mhm.
And that's why a lot of people hold on to it quite dearly
Mhm.
because it's from before the explosion of voodoo.
I mean, I think they're almost protective about it in a way. In terms of, this was, it's like, that under, like, you guys like D'Angelo, but we're fans. We've been with him since Brown Sugar. This is like the real shit. You
Yeah.
guys don't know about that. You know about the untitled video with his shirt off. That's when you came in. No, we were here from, the gate.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I wasn't like there. You know what I mean? So, but I've been talking to people about the fact that I'm going to do this podcast. Like, because I got excited for it. I got excited. So I've been like, yeah. So I'm going to talk about voodoo, and then I had my dad went, yeah. They always talk about voodoo, man. What about brown sugar? And now I'm hearing you say this, and it makes so much sense. It makes so much
Yeah.
sense because I feel like at least with how I've kind of been on D'Angelo, like he's always been around. Like I grew up, my mum loves the song Africa so much. So I was listening to that all the time. And then when I got to an age when I'm listening to music myself, no one is really listening to D'Angelo. You know what I mean? Because like he didn't release from 3 years before I was born until I was like 10. So people just between that aren't listening. D'Angelo doesn't come up in conversation. He doesn't end up in people's ears. Oh, where was I going with that? Oh no, it's gone. Oh no, it's gone. Oh, that's tragic. That point is forever gone, mystified.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come
Yeah.
back.
Well, for me, uh, so I had like a little bit of like a soul R&B education, not a lot. Like I knew a lot of like Marvin Gaye, Al Green, like
Mhm.
Otis Redding, and then like newer shit. Like my dad would play SZA's Control. I would find like newer stuff on my own by the time I hit high school. So like around like 2018, 2019. So I was mostly listening to you know, like Frank Ocean, if you even really consider him R&B.
I
I think
do.
he has like a blend, but mostly pop, like Daniel Caesar, stuff like that. But during the pandemic was when I really started getting into more of the history of music and trying to go back and listen to all these older albums and, inform my taste a little bit better and see where certain sounds come from, all that stuff, and just experience new things.
Mhm.
So my first time listening to Voodoo, I didn't really get it. I didn't really get it the first few times, but the more I listened and I think the more I grew, and it was around the time when I got into my first relationship. It was like around summer 2020. That's when I started to get it. That's when I started to connect with it. So I really feel like the album keeps growing on me and I
Mhm.
keep getting more out of it the older I get and the more life I live, like, the
Mm.
more experiences I have, the more partners I've had. And it's really a beautiful piece of music. And I'm glad I really stuck with it instead of just dismissing it after not really understanding it. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
even on that first listen, I knew there was something about it that I didn't get, but I kind of wanted to understand it, and I was curious about it at least. And I think that's a testament to what they made.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'll try and keep my story from being long. But this came out at an important time when I was in the army. Um, and one of my best friends, is a very slick dude from Atlanta, and he only listened to soul and R&B everywhere he went.
Mm.
And he like when he left his house, he would leave candles going. He was like setting a permanent romantic mood wherever he went. And it was amazing to go places with him because he was like sweet talking the deli person cutting the fucking roast beef. Like he was like always on, you know? I was like, damn. And I started to realize that's when I started to connect to like, oh, if you listen to heavy metal, it changes the way you walk and move and talk to people. If you listen to rap music, it changes, these people are all listening to different things and it changes how they move in the world. And that was happening right as the Soulquarians were pumping out albums. And this is my second favorite Soulquarians album, the first being Mama's Gun by Erykah Badu.
Real.
Anybody who wants me to rant more about that can listen to my Next Movement podcast appearance where I went real into that. But yeah, Voodoo, it's an hour and 18 minutes long. I fucking lived with that thing. So I was like bopping around the fucking, bopping around the place. Just they'd be like, go change the tires, and I'd put the headphones in and bop over and fucking change a tire, hide under the vehicle, listen to some music. Like, I remember distinctly getting sent to the desert in like fucking August and just like hiding in the shade listening to D'Angelo's Voodoo. And the songs are like 6 minutes long, 7 minutes long. Like, this is your life now. You're listening to Voodoo. And it carried me through, man. It carried me through. It was like an emotional compass, you know? That's I guess that's how I'd sum it up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
That was as
yeah.
it came out, right? Like in 2000, that's you listening to it in the army.
Yeah.
One.
So let's do the knowledge. I joined the army in 99, right when I graduated. So 99, summer, heading right to boot camp, getting out of boot camp, AIT. So I'm probably hitting my first duty station as this comes out. Yeah.
Okay, what?
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's a great, like, that's what makes the album so great. You can like live in its world, basically, pretty much whatever kind of mood you're in. Like I definitely associate it with a bunch of different things personally, but no, it's cool that you had that experience and it, helped you get through that too.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes we all talk about like, I want a 30-minute album so I can do other things. Like, but if your life sucks,
Yeah.
having an hour and a half or something where you could
You
just
can just escape into it.
yes, not
Yep.
bad, dude. It's not bad. That's why sad people watch the Lord of the Ring movies. Sad people.
That's really interesting actually, with the kind of like the length of it adding to the world it creates, because it's like, I think, at least from what there's not many albums that scratch a similar itch to this sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a very specific sound and attention to detail on every single aspect of this album that I don't think anyone has ever really tried to dive in in a similar direction to. The similar direction, but not the same direction to. So it's like, from the very get-go of this album, it's, oh, okay, this is Voodoo now. And it slowly takes you through the very specific thing that Voodoo is, and that you're never going to get anywhere else.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we should talk about the details.
Yeah, I paused on saying too much because I was like, I don't know.
Talk about the details and like, so I can give what I think is an overview of what I learned, right? Restudying this. I think what is so special about this album is it's split in half, right? Like half the time D'Angelo's reinventing the fucking wheel. You've never heard any shit like that, right? There's never been a fucking R&B single like Devil's Pie. Like, that's fucking insane. But the other half of the time, he's giving us exactly classic shit. He like dials into a classic place for soul that is like dead on the fucking nose bullseye. Like that's a motherfucking Al Green song. Feel Like
Yeah.
Making Love is a motherfucking Al Green song. Like he can do it. Like he can dial in and give you do what Smokey did, no problem.
Mhm.
But like
Yeah.
he only does it part of the time. and so
Mhm.
part of the time it's the newest shit ever, and the other part of the time it's like it brings you back to the core of it, the soul of it,
Yeah,
and that mix is really dope.
I agree.
yeah. I think for sure, at least, a lot of my enjoyment coming from it is I grew up on listening to a lot of soul, and then listening to D'Angelo as well. It's like even when it is doing that old stuff, because it's not made back then. So obviously it has a completely different like texture to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's like D'Angelo's voice, the whole album, I feel, sounds like it has like a little bit of like a robotic sound to it mix wise. And that's
Yeah.
something that like when you listen back to old shit and it's just like an entirely warm texture, I think just the mix of the old and the new
Mhm.
mixing technique specifically leads to such an entirely different world. I said world
Yeah.
again, but like you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. When
The
I think about
atmosphere
it, like
is
the Soulquarians were working on 3 albums at that time. So
Yep.
there was Common, was it like Chocolate for Water,
Like
Mama's
whatever chocolate.
Gun,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then Voodoo.
Mhm.
For me, Voodoo was the intersection of all of the music. So I mean, if you look at, you look at the production credits, on this album, there was a heavy Jay Dilla influence.
Right.
On top of Q-Tip worked on it, Roy Hargrove, Raphael Sadiq,
Mir.
um, DJ
Yeah.
Premier's on it, Questlove's on it. So you have an intersection of all of these different genres and different directions of music, all intersecting on this one album. So that that kind of ties to what he was saying about the textures. There's so many different influences all working together and coming together and formulating to create this album. That's why it sounds so unique.
Mhm. And they're
Yeah.
all united in a spirit of like they had a mission, right?
Yeah.
No God, what do you think the mission was?
Well, I know I was going back and watching videos of Questlove talk about it, and they basically just set out to make something new out of all the old shit they love, like Hendrix,
Mhm.
Stevie Wonder, Prince, Marvin Gaye, a lot of other artists too that I can't remember, but they wanted to be able to recreate what these talented artists that they look up to were doing, but put a twist on it and shift it and mold it into something of their own. That, yeah, I don't know. I think that was definitely the mission. I think they definitely achieved that because, like you said, Dan, there is a good mix of the old and then just shit that, you know, was so ahead of its time and probably, I don't think a lot of like Untitled, you can't, like, that hasn't been recreated. Like, I don't think there's a single song that reminds me of like Devil's Pie. And there's a bunch of other examples too. But there's also callbacks to older stuff. And I don't have the I don't have the same like soul education or like background as Kosey does, but um I did some research and I learned that some of the stuff, like I learned some of the interpolations or some of the samples. Like I think that Send It On samples Cool in the Gang. There's like all this cool shit that
Mm.
Yep.
is
That's
really like it's perfect homage, basically.
that's something I at least doing this listen as we were doing it is like I remember years back I read one of those 33 and the third books on voodoo. So long ago I don't remember anything from that book. But one thing that did stick with me is the specifics of like Feel Like Making Love is a cover of who's it again? Is a cover of a song by like
Oh yeah,
Roberta
what's her
Flack.
name?
Roberta Flack, I think it is.
Yes, Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like having that there, and D'Angelo's version of it is like double the length. So it's like the expansion on on those old ideas is literally right there. You know what I mean? As much as it's the whole album's thesis, it's also squarely put into specific songs where it's like, okay, this is the one where we're gonna take what was new, what was old, and rejuvenate it.
Right.
Yeah. And I think like one of the ways they were able to do that, and like you just mentioned stretching it out. Um, there's a lot of that on this album. It's more of a, especially compared to Brown Sugar,
Yes.
way more slow burn and slow build.
Mm.
And
Right.
there's like little shifts. Like you can get like I'm trying to think of an example. There's moments where they're, you know, the instrumentalists they're playing stuff on a loop for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but then
Yeah.
all of a
Oh, I
sudden
think
there's a
of
little shift.
The Root, like something like The Root.
Yes, the root. Um, but even just the way the songs are structured, they're very
Yeah.
interesting because uh you have very dragged out verses sometimes. Like D'Angelo's almost rambling at certain points, but it feels
Mm.
very intentional and like really stretching out the ideas that he like presents in refrains and stuff and choruses and all that. And it's really
Mm.
interesting because it's this constant slow build, but when they finally get to that point to where they start to really raise the tension, it's the payoff's
Yes.
always perfect.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's the key word. It plays with, and a lot of, soul and black music is built on tension.
Hmm.
And to build tension, like in anything, you need time, and you need to be able to control the pace.
Mm.
So that's why, the album's an hour, but it doesn't feel like an hour because they have such control of the tension and the pace on the songs that you almost lose track of time when you're listening to
Right.
everything.
That's I was gonna say it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not that it sounds short, it's that you forget time exists when it's on.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's a special designation.
Hmm.
I agree. Yeah.
My
Wow.
my 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 idea of what the mission is, having re-listened, is that like, so what made 70s soul so cool was they were experimenting with time and space, right?
Hmm.
So Isaac Hayes would grab a Carpenter song and he'd make it 14 minutes.
Mm.
2.5 minute song, he's making it 14 minutes. He's punching in long grooves that will become the samples to your favorite rap albums, right? Barry White is doing a similar deal. We talked about Al Green. Love and Happiness is over 5 minutes long. They were letting these songs breathe. They were letting organic musicianship fill that space.
Hmm.
Now, at the point Voodoo comes out, there's a lot of like thin white open shirt in the rain R&B.
That's
Yeah.
something I was actually gonna ask about
Yeah.
in terms of like,
Like Genuine and
Yeah, genuine.
yeah and all
There's a
that.
lot of like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that happening. There's a lot of burbling Timbaland sounds and shit. Like there's a lot of that. And I think the mission is like, now we're going back to this 70s shit, and you're gonna feel every instrument. You're gonna feel every
Hmm.
turn. You're gonna feel
Mm.
every note. And like
Yeah.
you
Oh,
can
sorry.
hear like one of the aspects of this that really keyed me into that as a mission was there's no album released in this period of time with this much background muttering.
Yeah.
word.
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
That's one of my key points to my notebook, bro.
What was
Yeah.
it?
I was gonna. Yeah.
Was it One More Again that starts with just him like flirt muttering with a lady?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's
he
just
Yeah.
him.
pretend like
Yeah.
he saw someone like an old lover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to get the phone number,
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
then
mean,
it
he's doing
starts
that,
to
and then the beat is slow, and it's like you're saying, the beat is slowly building up, the tension's building up, until there's like a release of the tension with, once the song really kicks in.
And even like
Yeah,
even
it's
then, like
beautiful.
the song like One More Again specifically, like it kicks in and then it doesn't kick in. It kicks in and then you get the tiny little piano playing the melody, but mad quiet and just your right ear. And then after it does that for a bit, then it kicks in again. You know what I mean? So it's like that continuous,
Yeah.
like not letting the release really happen. And then when it does, you're like, oh, okay, cool. It's no
Yeah.
longer tense. We're fine.
Just to quickly add on to Dan's point about like the mumbling. Sometimes D'Angelo kind of like rambling a little and then like interrupting himself with like
Mm,
either like riffing or just little ad libs. Like sometimes that is the bridge, and that's very different to the R&B of that time, and even very different to like Brown Sugar because you have like these beautifully constructed bridges, right? And I think that's like a lost art now, honestly. When I hear a lot of like newer R&B, they don't know how to do the bridges like like Brandy could or whoever
yeah,
else, right?
yeah.
Or Usher, you know, or like Mary J. Blige. But the bridge sometimes with D'Angelo on this album is just him kind of muttering and kind of controlling the tension once again and like controlling the pace um until you get to like the next verse or the chorus, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. No, it's so the aspects of it are so different and so unique that it just adds up to something that's real wild. Like, yeah, I was trying to think like how many songs on this K are under 5 minutes?
Let's see. Let me pull it up. Are under 5 minutes.
I think it. I mean, off the top of my head, I think it's like two max. It's got to be that. It can't be. There can't be that any less than it.
Let me see.
Can't even be.
So none. The shortest song is The Line, which is 5:15. Oh no, left. Ironically, not ironically, Left and Right is 4 minutes and 46 seconds.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Everything else is
Grease is 4:36, right? Or but
with yes, Chicken
Two.
Grease.
I
Sorry,
was right.
Chicken Grease
Chicken
as
Grease,
well.
yeah, 4:36.
Chicken Grease and Left and Right.
Mm.
But the whole end of this album, I felt like I was learning a new language.
Mm,
Feel Like Making Love, 6 minutes, 22 seconds. Then Great Day in the Morning and Booty, 7 minutes, 35 seconds.
yeah.
Untitled, How Does It Feel? 7 minutes, 10 seconds. And 6 minutes, 13 to wrap it up with Africa. That's a lot of fun. That's more than an EP.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an album now. That's like
I was
20.
about to say.
That's a fucking album.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
I was in my head like, do I like subtly point out the fact that a lot of the rap albums I listen to are like less, a lot
Yeah.
less, a lot shorter than that.
Yep.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
that's insane. And that was like they just didn't give a fuck, man. They were doing something completely different.
Mm.
And I think Neo Soul's mission was to get back to an organic space where people could
Yeah.
really communicate their feelings. It was a way to cut through some of the cartoonish tropes that were going on,
Mm.
the pretty rickiness of it all, and get through to like the core of it, and let India Ari ride a bicycle through the sunshine or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Jill Scott was in there. Music Soul Child.
right.
Mm.
Yeah. All of those albums released within like 2 years of each other. So I mean it's pretty remarkable in a lot of ways.
Yep. Yeah. And it's wild, but it was the Soulquarians, that was a heck of a movement. And this album is very influential. Do you hear Voodoo, the seeds of Voodoo anywhere else?
I do for sure. At least in a lot of the like contemporary R&B I'm listening to, like what like Live Live Dotty. I don't know the
Yep,
E's not
yep.
pronounced, but Live.
Yeah, those, yeah.
I've been hearing in that. I listened to that K. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Keiyaa.
Yeah.
I know you know it, no god. But I listened
I'm
to
not
that
sure how to
album
pronounce it.
recently, and you can
Assumed it
hear
was
it in like,
Kaya.
yeah, probably that. That makes sense. But I didn't want to
Yeah.
butcher it.
No,
But
you're good. You're
yeah,
good.
you can hear it specifically in like songs like Every Nigga Is a Star on that album, Forever Your Girl. Like that song lets there be so much space.
Mm.
There's so much quiet on that song. And like, there's not necessarily like, I wouldn't say in the same way D'Angelo does it, where the song will like go to complete halt, but it will just allow there to just be her and a single bass line for a bit. And I think that sparseness is definitely something that doesn't happen if you don't get that bridge on Untitled, where it's just where it builds up and then goes completely quiet. You don't get Kaya where she is right now without that build up happening in 2000. Is how I hear it, at least.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just very influential over the underground. And it was weird because I know that for us in 2000, D'Angelo kind of became a myth a little bit, like because he disappeared, right? And people would be like, "Who's the best R&B singer in the world?" We'd be like, "D'Angelo." They'd be like, "He doesn't even make music anymore." I'm like, "Fuck you, D'Angelo!" Like it was like he was here. I saw him. Fuck you. You know.
Mm.
We we just had to hold on to that memory until Black Messiah came, and they're like, "Oh shit, here it is."
He existed the whole time.
Yeah, fuck, man.
Mm.
But yeah, it was like that, I guess, and it certainly to me because I did Miseducation come out around the same time?
Yes, I think it was a
Yeah.
year after.
I think it ages better than Miseducation. Because
Yeah,
I
I
think
think I agree.
there's like and I don't know. I have this person I work with, and they're like, I like to do it big picture every time. I'm like, yeah, but what you're doing is trying to eat the whole pizza in one bite. And that there's a little bit of that with Lauryn Hill. She was like, I'm going to talk about my love life, but I'm also going to solve the world. And it was like,
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
for me, I think for Miseducation, I think there are what's the best way to say it? I think there are probably higher highs, if that makes sense. Like I think doo-wop, that thing, like I just heard nothing even ironically,
Oh,
I
I was
heard
about to bring
nothing
that
even
up. I was about to
matters
bring that up.
Yeah.
this weekend. So there's songs like that are gonna be untouchable. But I think as a project as a whole, Voodoo, you're right, stands up a little bit better.
Yeah. Voodoo feels personal, emotional, yet like beyond personal in a sense. Like I guess
Yeah.
the description would be like, "Ain't no sunshine when it's gone," right? Like I remember when somebody was like, "That's about his dog," and I'm like, "Probably could be." It's not very specific, like, but it doesn't need to be specific.
Yeah.
It feels like it's about you.
I
And
think sorry. No, you continue.
that's what a lot of those D'Angelo songs are. You end up feeling like they're you because they're general enough to fit you. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, that's what I remember like when Noga brought it up before, is like how D'Angelo is kind of like difficult to understand for most of this album. Kind of mumbling in a lot of ways. And I think that really adds to the point that you're making of how you can just feel it. Because for this entire project, I would say like from the line onwards, D'Angelo doesn't really make a point of you very clearly hearing the words he's saying,
Right.
and just kind of utilizes his um his vocals as like just an instrument that you're hearing as well, that adds to the mood of the song. Like when he'll come in and he'll have like four harmonies simultaneously doing like runs that don't really work together but really do work together, and you're not supposed to hear the words that those runs are doing. It's just the energy not the energy, the vibe that creates is what the words are saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a part of my write-up. I was kind of proud when I finished it, where I was talking about his vocals and I talked about his voice like smoke. That sometimes it chokes you, it's so present, and
Mm,
sometimes it's just wisps when you're just watching
mm.
it in the
Mhm.
in the air. And
And he'll do those in the same those two moods in the
yes,
exact same song, like 10 seconds after each other.
yep. And you'll end up with, when the wisp swirls away, you end up with, like, you always end up with something that you can hum in the grocery store.
Hmm.
You always end up with
That
like
was me today.
a melody you can hum, like, and something he's humming it, and
Mm.
like, so it these songs build from the particle to the full thing, and
Yeah.
sometimes they come back to the particle. It's pretty crazy.
Hmm. He just sounds so in control the whole album. Like he sounds like the conductor to me
Mm.
of everyone doing everything. I think how it went, he recorded the his vocals after they did the instrumental sessions, and it took like he took time after that to write everything. I don't know exactly how the process worked, but it just sounded like he was so in sync with what they were doing. It sounded like he was the mastermind behind
Yeah.
everything that was going on,
That,
basically, just from his voice. You know what I mean?
that's
Yeah.
something I love so much
Right.
about it is like it sounds like everything is being played live.
Yep.
But
Mhm.
obviously it's not because he's harmonizing with 9 other versions of himself. But it sounds like everything was done just on the fly,
Yep.
and oh, we can't go back and change that. It's just
Hmm.
done now. But clearly there was so much precise editing and like clipping and stuff and
Oh
deciding, oh
yeah.
wait, this is where we should put this way we should put this way we should put this. But it lands in such a way that makes it feel like it couldn't have been any other way. It just was this and now it's out.
You know, I
Yeah.
I read because a couple of years ago I read the Jay Dilla biography, and they
Dilla time.
mentioned for Voodoo, huh?
Dilla time.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dilla time. Yeah,
I'm reading
and
that right
they
now.
they
Yeah.
yeah they met great book. They mentioned like, look, like we were just in awe of this dude. We were trying to do what he does like electronically. We were trying to translate that and convert that into live music.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they were trying to mix, like have the precision but imprecision at the same time, like that tight groove, but at the same time allow space for soul to come in. So they were walking a very tight rope with this project in terms of that.
Sure. Yeah, I think we got to talk about Questlove at least a little bit
Mm.
right.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Because yeah, I know he was. I saw a video. I think it was from his Red Bull Music Academy interview.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was a clip of him like actually demonstrating uh what exactly D'Angelo wanted him to do, and the timing sounded super wacky, like with no other instruments to put it into context, right? It just sounded super gloppy. It sounded a little drunkish. You know what I mean? It was,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what D'Angelo wanted. He wanted him to drag it even more at times, and uh, he really. But without those drum grooves, you don't have this album in a
Yeah.
way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's something so hypnotic and like addicting about those drums, and I think Questlove really killed it. And yeah, I don't know.
He's the
It really
least
helps make the album.
he's
Sorry.
the least metronomy that he's ever
Yeah.
been, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of
It-
like in a
yeah.
lot of the interviews I've seen is him talking about how he had to like unlearn the like he had to unlearn most of the things that he'd been honing for years
Yeah.
because he heard this guy with a drum machine, and I was just like, yeah, that's insane to me. I love as well like this album, kind of to do with the thing we are talking about earlier with the influences. Like you can't talk about this album without then mentioning the things before it, and that's something that I love so much about it. Is like
Mm-hmm.
what like we've Dilla's come up like 4 times.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just the fact that that is so integral to this album as a listening experience, and not even that's just as a discussion point in
Mhm.
culture is something I really I'm a fan of when an album has a clear through line before it
Mm-hmm.
and then a clear through line afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dilla's on this, like more than just directly. Dilla is an influencer on this. Uh, and it's critical, right? Like,
Yeah.
and Quest had gotten so precise that his drumming was losing a little bit of its life, a little bit of its resonance. Like it started to sound like a computer.
What Roots album was coming out around this time?
But
Would have
it's
been right after this thing or Things Fall Apart. Sorry.
yeah, Things Fall Apart. It had to be like 98 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I
So,
know.
yeah.
I know they were making. Questlove said, uh, his contributions to Voodoo were all throughout '96 to '98. So
Uh-huh.
that would have been
Oh
probably around the
wow.
same time they were
Yeah.
making. Yeah, Things Fall Apart. Probably like right after Illidel.
Things Fall Apart came out in 1999, and then Phrenology came
Yeah.
out 2002.
Yep, that makes sense.
Right. And you can definitely hear like the okay, so for me personally, just for context, Illidel Half-Life is still my favorite Roots album.
Yep.
But I think there's something really special about Things Fall Apart. And you could hear like the Soulquarians, like the neo soul seep into that project in such a beautiful way that obviously like Illidel doesn't have, and I don't think any of their other projects really have that either. But it's once again, it's just really special that these albums were all made around the same time. It's like a beautiful thing.
And
Yep.
I love how the albums kind of like you can feel that they were all made around the same time as well.
Yeah.
Like that's a key part of it. The Soulquarian sound was not even unified in sound really, but in terms of just the energy being put towards it, and you can see it through just like even on Mama's Gone, for instance. I mean, I know we're not talking about that, but Mama's Gone, the J Dilla track on that,
Sure.
like it doesn't even necessarily sound like a J Dilla beat, but because of the Soulquarians as a whole, it makes so much sense that it is.
No, for sure. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
That's incredible.
it's dope. I just think it's really interesting. It's an interesting dynamic because yeah, he's so good. So Kay, what else have you heard this in?
Say that one more time.
What else have you heard the influence of this album on?
Gosh, I mean, it's so. For me, I mean, it's difficult now because the music industry in a whole is just in a completely different place than it was in 2000. Obviously, the whole dynamic, the label dynamic, like everything has changed. So for something like this, like Voodoo would not get made in 2024, and I honestly believe that. So it's difficult. Like, I mean, I hear the influence in guys like, Daniel Caesar.
Yep.
But like in terms of mainstream R&B, I don't really hear anything. I don't really hear the influence anymore. And it's also in terms of another thing. Not only has the music industry changed, but the way people listen, and we've mentioned this before, but the way that people listen to music and the listeners' attention span has changed as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels like R&B has maybe split off into two places, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a very classical strain of R&B that like isn't that far from Jaheim, like
Look.
It's kind of similar deal. And then there's the post Frank Ocean stuff, right? Where you got like Serpent with Feet, and you've got like all these interesting folks that are,
Wigs,
a little wordier,
Solange.
a little more evocative and avant-garde.
Mhm.
But neither of those are really what this album does.
No.
I think well for me it's I can hear traces of D'Angelo or sorry, Voodoo in um some of the internet stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the way Sid uses her voice is very
Ooh,
I
Sid.
mean
Yeah, that's a
can
good
never
point.
be D'Angelo obviously, but like she has good control over her tone and um the way they play too, like there's songs where, like there's some funky grooves that I guess we're like more accustomed to because it's like, we're accustomed to post J Dilla production, right? And post
Mhm.
or J Dilla drums, that kind of style. But like they definitely implement that. I think even sometimes with like, I don't know, Robert Glasper, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
you get,
for sure.
you get shades of D'Angelo, but also like the other soul variants with him. It's not just Voodoo. I hear a lot of interesting. I think a lot of like Southern rappers have a bit of D'Angelo in them sometimes, like Isaiah Rashad,
Oh,
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
okay.
Pink Sifu,
Mm.
Pink
Yeah,
Sifu.
for
That
sure.
would
Pink
probably
Seafood
Def,
be,
has
def.
Pink
yeah.
Seafood's like first album, I think like 2009. I think
Yeah.
it's called 2009. Like I remember when I'm putting people onto that album, I'm like, yeah, this is like a lo-fi D'Angelo. Like that's how I kind of tend to go about describing that album because it
Hmm.
feels as though it is
Mm.
just what D'Angelo was kind of doing on Voodoo, put into a more cassette inspired environment.
Yeah, no,
Pink
that's a
Interesting.
good
great.
comparison.
That was a great
I
call.
agree.
Yeah.
I think Leather Boulevard too,
Yeah.
it has some
Yeah,
very
for
long
sure.
songs. The interesting thing about that one though, and even like Gumbo too, I think with Leather Boulevard, it's different because it's a lot more collaborative in the sense like there's a lot more voices. I think D'Angelo's like the only voice on Voodoo, right? Or the only like
Other than the
main
rap
voice.
Except
verses,
for Method Man
the rap
and
Except for
verses, yeah.
yeah. I meant
yeah.
like singing wise though. Like I don't
Oh,
think there's any other
well.
backing vocals from anybody
Hmm.
else. You
Mm.
know?
Hmm.
I think
Um
the thing with that. Oh wait, no, sorry. Continue. No, you do your thing
oh
first.
no, I was done
Okay.
I was
Yeah,
done
but
on
I
my
I think the thing with that is like I would say still because of how much the instrumentals are like a very vital part of Voodoo and how that is obviously like loads of other people. I would say that spirit is
hmm
still within and then kept up with Leather Boulevard having all these collaborations because
hmm
even in
Oh,
Voodoo,
I agree.
where it is just D'Angelo's voice we're hearing, it's however many instrumentalists doing their thing. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that that's a very integral part of Voodoo is that it is a very collaborative album, even though you only one of like the three voices you hear.
hmm
D'Angelo is that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good shout.
And I would say there you can
Mm.
hear when Armand Hammer does something like diabetic test strips and gets bands to perform stuff so they can sample it, you can still feel a little bit of that like we want it to feel live, we want it to feel
Mm,
real, you know. Uh, and that mantra, a lot of that comes from Voodoo, you know.
yeah,
Uh,
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
as this is a very like specific to me example, but like when I was in college, I went to a music college, and a lot of the musicians they were on their the new jazz thing, and I remember when like I went to college like COVID years, so when restrictions came up, and we were like able to start doing gigs again, Spanish Joint was
oh,
played
Yeah.
so often. That song was I heard that song so many times. At every single jazz gig I went to, I was hearing that song played. I one time I
hmm
went to it where the opener and the a headliner played it, and like and the same gig. So it's like that sound and influence is still, regardless of whether you're hearing it in the specific songs, that just right
hmm
there had
That's
clearly
dope.
touched all of these people enough
Mm.
to have it become a mainstay in underground pub jazz gigs in 2021,
Right.
like in
Right.
the UK specifically. I
Yo,
don't know if that was
yeah.
the same anywhere else, but that's what I experienced.
That's
Mhm.
awesome.
I got one
You're
more
right.
thing, Dan.
I mean, I
I'm gonna.
think
Sorry.
it's interesting because you're right, because I was thinking of the influence of voodoo in R&B, but it's clear to me based on what you guys are here saying and thinking about it, it's been more influential in hip hop. Like I don't think to pimp a butterfly doesn't get made if voodoo doesn't get made.
That's
Hmm.
real. That's a
Interesting.
real
Okay.
thing.
I agree. Man, I was gonna shoot this by you, but sometimes I hear the spirit of D'Angelo and Currency. You have to hear me out on this one.
Ooh,
Okay.
talk to me.
Hey, no.
Um,
Keep going. Keep going.
it's not always okay. Well, first off, they're both very much old souls. This guy Currency loves his Nina Simone, Aretha. Like he's always sampling like really classic soul shit, right?
Yep.
But with those two, it's not it's not about what they're saying necessarily. It's about how they're saying it. And I think with Currency, sometimes it's hard to make out what he's saying, or like it doesn't even matter because you can just, it's just you and him basically on a smoky beat, you know,
Yeah.
and you just feel it. I don't know how else to describe it.
He always finds a way to dictate what's going on in the pace. Currency always
Mhm.
finds a way to dictate. Like you never hear a song go, Currency's trying to figure this beat out. Like
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Word.
scrambling.
Mhm.
Like Currency's not scrambling. Currency's doing currency stuff.
Mhm.
He'll
Yeah.
turn it into his shit. He'll figure it out.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
do.
there's a
Yeah.
level there's a level of confidence that they both have. Like they're
Mhm.
not making music to pander. And you can tell when artists are making music to pander, whether it be, for attention or awards. They're making the music because they want to. And if you
Mm.
come along for the ride, then so be it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. The
Yeah.
to get specific on this album,
Ooh.
Mhm.
my least favorite song on the album is Left and Right.
I agree.
That is
Yeah.
wild. I am not alone here. There's a lot of people who are like, why are Meth and Red yelling at me about pussy holes? What is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and we're in a very intuitive era for features of like, you know what? Come on my song, and I've got this concept, and let's work together on it. Meth and Red did not do that. They would come on your song and they would do Meth and Red, and then they would leave.
They
Yeah.
didn't understand the assignment.
It didn't
As the
matter
kid
whether
would
it was
say.
Tupac or whether it was D'Angelo. Bang, we're gonna do it.
Yeah. It's like.
We're
Oh,
Meth-
sorry. Yeah. No. But in that song, like, I think about that. Like when I was re-listening to it, it's like D'Angelo is like really sweetly being like, "This is what I'm gonna do," and then in the background they're like, "Yo, D, how we doing?" Like, you, it's like
Because
to have to contrast like the softness and like I think D'Angelo's sensualness, like in how he approaches his
yeah.
sex raps, is very like giving.
Yes.
You know what I
yes,
mean? And then to have Method and Redman on the song, they kind of they don't embody that same
right.
selflessness. I feel not selflessness. It's not the
Mhm.
right word, but like you know the energy I'm kind of just trying to describe
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they have that.
They take the intimacy away from sex pretty much.
Yeah.
You,
They
you
take it
know
out
what's
of it,
funny? I read that. Okay, so the original version of Left and Right was Q-Tip was rapping.
Q-Tip, you say?
Yeah, Q-Tip
Okay,
was the original. He was supposed
I
to be
could
the
see that.
original
Okay.
rapper, and that was, in their words, too boring. Like he didn't deliver. So I
Wait,
think
in his
like
words,
they were
sorry.
trying, like
Wait.
maybe they tried to overcorrect. Like, oh shit, this is a little bit too boring. We need a little bit
Mhm.
more
You
contrast.
bring the
Let's go
ruckus.
get
Yeah.
Wait,
Method Man
but
and
that
Redman, and that'll be the contrast we need. And it was a little too much contrast.
mhm.
They should just had Botin and Dilla, man. That's who they
there is
should have
that.
got. That's like the perfect medium. Sorry.
Even though I don't
Go
love
ahead.
Left and Right, there is that one moment like in the bridge where the beat switches up just kind of
Yeah.
like just the groove that the bass was sitting in switches up a little bit, and like that specifically right there, it tunes me back in. Like I might be I'll be a little locked out of it for a sec because I'm not really a fan of the energy being thrown my way. But then that switch up, still once again, D'Angelo being an amazing conductor,
Yep.
it's just it will bring me back. I'm like, okay, yeah. As much as I don't like, yo D, how we do? As much as I don't like that, I still get the voodoo that I love in that song.
Yeah, part of me's like, if it's too boring and you want to get it crazy, fuck it, just put the Hot Boys on it,
Yeah,
right?
that'd be
They can
funny.
do that thing where they go in the background,
Yeah,
and BG will rap about his crazy shit, and everybody will just go off.
yeah. I think
That's what it
but
needed, doesn't it?
the interesting thing about like your critique, I like left and right, to be honest, but I understand the critiques. But I think the interesting thing that this opens up is uh the coolness that D'Angelo has, the kind of sensuality he brings, kind of intimacy he brings. Like he can make you know, he can make out music out of a song that's not about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Mm.
He can create those sorts of vibes or energy. And I think of like D'Angelo's energy. To me, it's a very unique kind of energy because he has that coolness that a lot of male R&B guys have, like like a very strong masculine kind of presence in his
Mhm.
energy, but it never feels like he's trying to do too much or he's like being overbearing with it. But in the same way that Usher would, like Usher's like, he's a good looking dude and he's like he has a lot of charisma, but he loves the attention. You know what I mean? I never get that from D'Angelo.
Right.
And my example for that, like when we're just talking about like that kind of bravado, I think of the Brown Sugar title track and the way he just comes in on the first verse and super smooth. Um, he's talking about a girl he met, but he doesn't overdo it. And he sounds so suave.
Hmm.
And I haven't really heard anybody do that without, you know, trying to do a little bit too much, if that makes sense. It's a very special thing to me.
I guess you could think of it like that. K is like, it's almost like your loudest friends come over,
Mm,
Hmm.
and you're just like you love them, but you're still trying to foster your own energy, and they're bringing the rambunctiousness.
Yeah. I mean, I think, in terms of seduction, like quiet confidence is an important part of in terms of any seduction.
Yeah,
Like you have to be when you're trying to seduce someone. And I'm only going by I just read a book, Robert Greene, I think he wrote a book a couple about seduction. But when you're trying to seduce someone, you not only have to, build confidence with the other person, but you have to display a quiet confidence that puts them at ease. And I think, D'Angelo is he's got that quiet confidence in a way that is puts everyone at ease, including the listener.
hmm
yep,
And
I have
I
a
think that that's
comparison.
kind of like a lost art because nowadays, you know, I don't want to be general, but like in mainstream R&B, the first thing the R&B singer's doing is taking off the shirt.
well, and I blame the Weekend for some of that shit. He made it into some real Clockwork Orange, like
Mm.
you're in the
hmm
bathtub, your skin's turning blue, I feel sad but you're dead, like he was making that shit.
Yeah.
I
um
mean, I think Weekend, he kind of he flipped the whole thing on its head. So like D'Angelo is
hmm
quiet confidence.
yeah,
Weekend is like, yeah, I'm insecure. Like listen to The Hills.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
Weekend is like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm insecure, but I'm leaning into it. Like I'm insecure, but you're insecure as well. Let's be insecure together and do
right,
these
hmm
drugs.
Yeah. I think
yeah,
with D'Angelo, it's just a very healthy balance and
Yeah.
like a very healthy masculine energy.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot of that from a lot of male R&B artists, I don't think.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I would say like
yeah.
Weekend's sorry. Yeah, I would say like Weeknd's like whole like his mission is to be the most toxic masculine energy
Oh yeah.
presence he can possibly be. At least I would
Mhm.
say pre what's the after hours pre after hours. He's just
Yeah.
how awful can I be on a song? Like
Yes.
Right.
and
And
that
Pretty much.
right, and you got to understand, like, who was D'Angelo, partnered with at the time? Angie
Mhm.
Stone,
Right.
who's who's
that's
a
the person send on is about,
one of
right?
the greatest writers in her own right as
Yeah.
well.
Angie
So
Stone.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's that. By the way, that's another shirt. K. Let's be insecure together. On the back, do these drugs.
you got to write
That's
these
funny.
ideas down, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
that's actually a solid shirt in a
As-
sick way, but yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
Uh,
that's fire. I can't lie to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a graphic tee? I
Um,
feel like we should put a V-neck variant. You know what I mean? Like realistically, too many graphic
mhm.
tees out here. We
Yep. V-neck
Yeah.
variant. Let's
yeah.
go.
I got one more thing on that topic though. Uh, Dan, you know how you compared like Voodoo to like Lord of the Rings, like
Yeah.
very
Yep.
loosely earlier. I actually have a Lord of the Rings comparison in mind.
Go for it.
D'Angelo's sort of like Aragorn, very steady, but very like alluring and like charming.
Mhm.
And he seems like a very solid guy, especially like I don't know with how he comes off, with how his energy is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
very safe, steady presence. Um, that's like that's my comparison. Yeah.
But and it is wild though to hear on Devil's Pie and hear him being like, "There's hookers on the street," and I'm like, "Yeah, you got arrested with hookers on the street." Like D'Angelo's been through it, like in his own life, but
Mm-hmm.
you never felt like he was contradicting himself because he was all the emotions. Like
Yep.
Mhm.
he was walking with it, like
Mm.
it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he definitely spiraled at one point, and
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah,
he's in a
that
better place.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I
that's the
think.
one thing I oh sorry. No, you go.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's the one thing I remember about the 33 and the third book I read on Voodoo was literally just
Mm,
the in-depth discussion on how the perception of Untitled led to the then 14-year break and what happened in between that 14-year
Yeah.
break. Like that was
mm-hmm.
that was like a and it for me obviously like as I wasn't there and I've only heard this music and been
Right.
like, oh, this is great music. Seeing that was such a like because I'm looking at it like, oh, he's taking a break. I wonder what happened there, not knowing that one of the songs that I'm like hugely in love with was kind of the first domino in a 14
Yeah.
year long spiral. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it was the thing about it that was so wild, is that like as a heterosexual dude, when another attractive heterosexual star hits, it makes dating harder, right? Like Channing Tatum hits, and these girls they're daydreaming of Channing Tatum. They're not even paying attention to me. So it was hard at that time. But
Mm.
D'Angelo was so dope. We didn't even think of him like that.
Mm.
Like we knew he was super attractive. The abs, we could see them, but like
They were visible.
they were visible.
They
And
are,
but
yeah.
like that was still our guy. Like that was still our guy. Like
Yeah.
Devil's Pie is a fucking jam. Like it was undeniable. So that's a special place to be like, yeah, my girl wants to have sex with you, but I still love you. You know, that's a hell
One
of
of
a thing.
when I was describing, when, as I said before, I was talking to one of my friends about this podcast. And
Yeah.
one of my friends was like, I can't listen to D'Angelo while I'm in a relationship because I'll realize I don't want to be having sex with the person I'm with. I want to be with D'Angelo. And
It
you know,
happens.
I I felt like there was a second where I was like, you're in a relationship right now.
Yeah,
I
it happens.
had to really take a step back from that conversation for a bit.
Yeah, I gotta stop playing D'Angelo for girls, bro.
It happens, man. But no, my favorite run on here, Kay,
Ooh.
be the opposite of my least favorite, right? To give positive thing here. My my pocket here is 6 and 7. Is chicken grease to one more again.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chicken
yeah,
grease to one more again is the most herky jerky that it gets.
perky
It's the
jerky.
most
Yep.
off kilter,
Yeah.
off
Mm.
speed. It's
Mm.
bananas, and I'm enamored by that 6 and 7 run.
Perky jerky.
That's fascinating. I mean,
That's a perfect way to describe it.
see, I think my favorite run of all time, any project is, and I haven't really gotten into chicken grease. I'm gonna have to,
Chicken grease is crazy.
yeah. I
What
mean,
about-
I go 7, 8, 9. I think 7, 8, 9 is that's my we talk about runs. That's my
Yep.
all-time favorite run.
Mhm.
One Mogan to the root to Spanish joint. Like that's perfection to me.
Yeah, Spanish Joint is fantastic.
Yeah.
One More Again is a hell of a song. Yeah, I'm with you. I love that
Yeah.
run. Yeah, it's. I think it starts with how off and how odd chicken grease is.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
and
palate cleanser. Because you're right. Because you gotta, maybe left and right left a bad taste in people's mouths. So you had to kind of reset a little bit and get people prepared for the second half.
Yeah. I think even
Okay.
like I think the whole beginning of the album is kind of like I like from Send It On onwards. I think
Oh,
it's a very different album. Like I think the first four songs all sit within quite a hardness that I think by Send It On has almost completely like just become like a hug that you just continue and stay through for the entirety of the rest of the project.
and I view the line as a stabilizer, post left
Mhm.
and right.
Yeah.
That you don't
Yeah.
worry about it. This is we figured this out. Uh,
It starts with immediately with on the line, like what the song start like left and right finishes, and then it's like, okay, don't worry about what Redman the man
don't
just
worry
said.
about it. Don't worry
We're
about
gonna
it.
we're then gonna and then D'Angelo does like this most beautiful harmony you've heard in your life
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with either of the songs that it's in between. Like that's sort of like I agree with you definitely to do the palate cleanser there.
Yeah.
Like,
Send it on down the line. And
oh, the line is so crazy. Sorry. Yeah, the line is so crazy. Like I
crazy.
listened well, I was really paying attention today while I was listening on the tube. Like the beat is so static
Yeah.
for the whole song. Like, and I think it's the only one where it really does that. Is like it's the whole song, the beat is basically the exact same, but D'Angelo's vocal performances create the variations in the beat for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, he
And
creates
and it's also like a really irregular structure in terms of where he's placing choruses and verses, and even what is considered the chorus is up
Mhm.
like it's confusing. So I think the way that
Yeah.
he kind of molds that beat in his image to just be his vocal performances. It's
the
insane.
line
He's like,
builds the tension, and I
Mhm.
think Send It On releases that tension a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
almost
line feels like
immediately as
his inner
well.
monologue.
Yeah.
He's like interrupting himself, and he's all over the place.
Yep.
You got a bunch of like,
Yeah, doing like
there's probably like
really
at
basic
least
rhymes and stuff.
like three backing tracks, and I mean like going on
Mhm.
at once. Sometimes it's crazy. And then, like you said, the harmonies on that song are beautiful.
Nuts.
Yeah, I think "Send It On" is
That's my favorite track on the album.
yeah, me too. Yeah, it's my
Send
favorite
It
Bro,
On
song.
is
the
beautiful.
bridge,
That's one of my
man.
favorite songs ever. Yep.
Mm. Like with what Dan mentioned ages ago with the smoke thing. When I replied with, oh, and he does it in the same song, I was thinking the transition from the bridge to then after the bridge.
Mm.
There is just so much. There is so much going on in the bridge of Send It On. It's like it's rising, it's rising, it's rising. You get, I think, just the most insane vocal run upwards with the horns doubling that exact same phrasing, and then just nothing. It just leaves you, and then you just get back to the Send It On really calmly. It's yeah, no, that's like my favorite moment in the whole album for sure.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
that
special song.
Beautiful moment. Mhm.
and the bridge is so short. It's not even a long. It's such a short section of this like
Yeah.
5 minute spiraling piece. Oh, it's insane.
But a great moment on a D'Angelo song sticks with you for forever. It's weird.
Mm.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I'm
yeah,
holding myself back from singing it right now. Like it's
No,
that it's that it's that type of track.
you got that going.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. I just it's really like there's not a lot of albums in its class,
hmm
and I hope that there comes a time when people like it. I was very happy that No God was getting into it, and that there was these that this album had touched all these other people. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
child actor couldn't be here, had some stuff going on with his family, but wanted to be here and loves that album. So it there's just a lot of people that's touched. So
Mm.
which feels good because I was just living with it in the desert,
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
That is a crazy experience to have with an album. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Mhm.
it's crazy. What any other closing thoughts?
Oh, let me get my
Guys?
notepad.
I'm
Let me get
good.
my notepad. Let me get the notepad.
I'm good. Bring the
You
note
go first.
out.
Wait, no. You go first. I got to sort these in my
Oh, you
brain.
sure?
Go.
Yeah.
Okay. Closing thoughts. Yeah, just wanted to repeat the fact that I feel this album was such an important part of me becoming an adult, basically. And just the not even necessarily the lyrics. It doesn't really come down to the lyrics a lot of the time. It's just like the feelings that I feel from this album
Mhm.
have I've really been able to relate to more and more as I experience more things. And I don't know, I think this album it's super comforting. I can play it in so many different settings and I feel at ease. And yeah, it also just fills me with a lot of like I don't even want to say hope, but it's just like, things are gonna be okay. A lot of
Mm.
love makes me want to
Mhm.
love people. It's very special. Yeah,
Very
that's all I
special.
gotta say.
The I would say my closing thoughts would be oftentimes what will happen is a black musician will become a star and then be humiliated publicly
Mhm.
uh, for the enjoyment of a largely white audience um, who wants the music they provide but doesn't want to give them the respect they deserve. Um, you can't do that to D'Angelo because he gave you voodoo.
Mm.
You can't say shit. You make fun of him about hookers, you can't because he has voodoo.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh well,
Yeah. Can I
It,
quickly?
yeah. The
Okay.
points on the board.
Yep.
It's on the board.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to quickly point out, I think one of my favorite details on the album is like, and I think is a really good showcase of the blackness that this album really inhibits is like the album starts off with what I've heard and I've seen called like haunting tribal noises.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you have just haunting tribal noises like vaguely described and heard in the background of it. And then at the end of the album, you have Africa. Right then, right there sitting, and it's the most comforting, soft song on the entire. I don't feel like there's not really a high point to that song. It just allows itself to be comforting and warm in a way that really just allows it just resonates and just stays and is the entire exact opposite of those haunting tribal noises
Mhm.
in quotes
Yep.
that you hear at the beginning. And I think that there's a real sense of trying to recontextualize Africa as an
Right.
entire concept in that final song. And I think that is kind of where I sit with the expression of blackness on this album. It has
Mhm.
it has all of the things it's being inspired by, all of the black musicians it's inspired by, and then it ends the album not entirely giving back to those musicians, but kind of paying homage to where those musicians got their inspiration.
Mhm.
And that's kind of that's the main takeaway I got from the re-listening on the tube, scribbling in my notes.
Love it. That's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about, Kay, or just
I mean, my only two thoughts are, you know, it's for the artist, so I have a thought for the artist and for the listener. The artist, I think after Voodoo, D'Angelo, like a lot of the behavior that happened with D'Angelo after Voodoo was kind of self-sabotaging. I think
Sure.
the danger that you have as an artist, if you're in the business and you're concerned about making money, your image will become your biggest enemy. And that image can strangle you, strangle your artistic creativity. So you as an artist in a business, in like the business world, you really have to work on protecting your craft and your artistry. And then so that's one, from the artist angle. And then from a listener angle, I think what makes this album so special is I think what you listen to is a reflection of your soul. Like the older I get, the more I realize. So whatever you're listening to is where your soul, where your whatever your whole spirituality
Yeah.
is going to be. And
Yeah.
that kind of ties into what you were saying earlier on with your friend in the army. Like what you listen to is a reflection of you.
Yep.
So if you listen to bad, and this is why I'm so adamant, if you listen to bad music, that's not doesn't speak too well for your soul.
Right.
So if you really want to enrich and feed your soul with good music, you gotta listen to Voodoo and things of that nature.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Now we got to hit recommendation corner so Kay can tell us about the seduction books that he's reading. Hey, he's reading books about
Yeah.
seduction. This is fantastic. I'll give you time to prep that. I'm gonna go with the
Okay, I'll give you the exact time. Yeah.
so for me, there's man, um it's 89 the Brainchild has a new project that is so cool. And I'm gonna call it Night Lives, even though it could be Night Lives.
Mhm.
This is 89 the Brainchild's not here, so it's cool. But yeah, definitely check that out. Fused Arrow Records, doing really cool experimental stuff. I really dig it. I really dig it. The other thing is I did send I sent DJ Preservation a voice message on Instagram, just thanking him for Prime Apple and El Leon, because I've just listened to that shit so much this year,
Mm.
and it really has emotional, personal songs that I'm just not used to Crime Apple digging into. And I think they caught him at a good time, and these were the right beats for those emotions. And so this is just hands down. This is the album that opened me up to the year of Crime Apple that I've enjoyed. So
He's been dropping a lot this year.
yeah, to CB's really good, but
Mm.
like to me, El Leon gave me, that gave me the codes to get in, and be
Yeah.
like, okay, I
Yeah.
understand this world.
I mean, there's the few people who have been really trying to put me on to Crime Apple, so I feel like this might be the
El Leon is
this might be the
crazy.
catalyst.
I fuck with it. Yeah. So, Kay, tell us about Seduction.
Yeah, I mean, so the book was, I mean, Robert Greene, he's the guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power, Mastery, and then he actually co-wrote a book with 50 Cent, the 50th Law, that I really enjoyed. But he wrote a book, so he wrote a book in 2001 actually called The Art of Seduction. That is like a really, really good book. And it's not only good because it's not only just like romantic seduction, but it's also how to like interact with people, and kind of what drives people in terms of their interactions with one another. So yeah, I highly recommend that book.
I'm a little sad that he didn't co-write The Art of Seduction with like Tony Yayo at least, That would have been cool. Koseph, give me some recommendations. What do we?
Oh, so I mean, you guys have definitely heard me talk about Javon before. Easily one of my favorite rappers out right now. Like, just the way he approaches kind of maturing and growing into being a father is something that I heavily appreciate and I love seeing in rap. It's
Yep.
something I love. But like his most recent album, not album, it's an EP with one of his friends who produces it, Grady. Um, that is currently on loop for me. If we weren't doing this podcast and listening to Voodoo all the time, I would be non-stop listening to this new Javon because it's like it feels like there's moments in it that feel like a complete combination of everything I've watched happen. Because I've been a fan of his since like 2019, and his album from 2020 ends with a song called Yumi's Shoes, which is his daughter's name, just saying talking about
That's awesome.
basically what he's
Yeah.
doing to be the best father he can be for his now at the time newborn daughter. And on this EP now, one of the songs ends with her singing a hook. You know what I mean? Just like having that kind of full circle moment of love and appreciation for the growth that this child coming into your life has caused you to have. You know what I mean? I think that then the way that's expressed on the record is just something that I'm super fond of. I'm in love with it. I'm in love with it for sure. And he's got other it's not even like it's an amazing record, and it's probably the best like whole project that he's done in my opinion since King Cheetah in 2021. So I would 100% recommend that.
Yep.
Red Suit EP by Javon.
It
Okay,
made
that-
me think of something. There's a local band called Dominic and the Lucid. I think they broke up. And now it's Dominic Lavoie on solo stuff. But one of the last albums they did was called Ferret, Ferret. And it has this song about his son being born.
Mm-hmm.
And that shit is amazing. It's called 11-Week Heartbeat. And
11-Week Heartbeat.
used to kill us
All right, that's
every time. No God, what are you bumping?
I'm trying to think of something new. I've been listening to a lot of older stuff though, a lot of Little Brother recently. Just can't get enough of old Ninth Wonder and Fonte. But
I've been bumping a
Hey,
lot of Fonte
you
recently.
heard the Pacific Time too EP?
I haven't heard it yet.
Oh,
I've
it's
been
good.
very busy
Good.
and I was trying to prep for Voodoo, so I haven't heard it yet, but I
It's
will.
good. Yeah.
I guess my recommendation would be the new Clairo album called Charm. It's very nice, just easy listening music. Um, I've I've been familiar with Clairo for a long time. I wouldn't have called myself a fan of hers before this album came out. I thought she had some like cool stuff, but she felt very boxed in because she has like a really quiet, soft singing tone that just wasn't very malleable, and a lot of the production she was using just wasn't the most interesting necessarily. But this is fully produced by Leon Michaels from what's it called L. Michaels
Well,
Affair.
Michael's Affair, absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot of kind of more soft psychedelic 70s kind of rock. There's some songs that kind of remind me of like Carole King or Fleetwood Mac, things like that. There's even some they veer into soul a little bit here and there.
Mm.
Some more like soulful textures. It's just a very well-made album. Not reinventing the
The
wheel, but
album's
it's
called
like a
Charm,
nice
you said?
charm. Yeah, by Clairo.
Word.
And
I've
how do you
seen-
spell the
It's
artist name?
it's just Claire, but you replace the E with an O. So CLAIRO.
Oh,
I haven't heard that
Yeah,
album
no, I've been doing.
personally, but I keep on seeing people sampling it on the timeline, so I've been
Oh,
considering
yeah.
checking it out myself.
No, it's very lush. It's very nice. It's a good listen.
Mhm.
I recommend.
Laro. That's
Do
awesome.
you think it's good as a first album from her to listen to?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I
word. I'll keep
don't
that in
know if
mind.
you'd like the rest of the albums. They're like the second one's more of like a chamber folk album produced by Jack Antonoff.
I did kind of always assume that she was a folk artist from the way people had described her, and then I kind of
Yeah,
not stayed clear, but
yeah.
didn't
She was
didn't jump at the opportunity to listen to it.
she was
Jack
big in that
Antonoff.
like bedroom pop stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Jack Antonoff is like, I have a love-hate relationship with that guy.
I
He's
can't
made the
wait
beat for
Kay's album with
616
Jack
in LA.
Anthony. It's gonna be good.
true.
It's gonna be
He
Yeah.
made 616 in LA, so he gets a pass in my book.
That's true.
good.
But all the Taylor Swift monstrosities. I don't know.
You're gonna K
Yeah.
Dickie styles
But
are gonna be.
I love his stuff with Lana Del Rey, so
Yeah.
he kind of gets a pass. So yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
For this was
Thank you for having us.
amazing. Joy to do.
I love doing it as well. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
you're
much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
fantastic.
amazing.
And, we love you. We'd love to have you back whenever the time
Absolutely.
serves. So
Love you too,
Uh,
man.
yeah.
That'd
Thank
be
you.
great. That'd be great.
Shout out to the Patreon peeps. We got new Patreon people. I appreciate you. Might drop some wild stuff on there. Yeah. What did R.I.P.
Oh.
Brittany Sullivan. God damn. I had a coworker who died of gun violence. Damn, that shit was
Oh.
crazy. Wrong place, wrong time kind of shit.
Shit.
R.I.P. Brittany Sullivan, man.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave it on the downer.
What will tomorrow bring?